to the side. We are in the final days. My time has come. Glory, glory. What do you think? 5.1?
This is it. This is the finale. The thing that the entire season was building up to. I mean it, literally. One of the innovations that Buffy introduced to television was the idea that the final episode provides a resolution to all the themes introduced in the season. But we shall talk about that in the next video, when we do our section summary. Here, we focus on this episode alone, the finale episode of Season 1 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, titled Prophecy Girl. Everyone agrees that this episode is another moment of growth for the show, the first moment when we glimpse its true potential. For me, this was the moment I started to feel that television art is superior to cinema, something that was unthinkable up to that point. When I watched this episode back in 1997, I actually didn't know if the show has been renewed, or if this is the end of it. In other words, I didn't know if Buffy will survive her showdown with the Master, and that somehow bothered me more than the potential death of any other film or TV character that came before. The funny thing is that all the episodes until now were much less scary than a horror movie, because they were short and campy. But as I was watching them, without noticing, the show managed to make me care about its characters, more than I cared for movie characters because we spent a lot more than 2 hours together, and more than I cared for characters on other TV shows because they were not one-dimensional. A lot has been said about how television made us desensitized to death, but when it is done right, it can make us feel loss and grief better than any other medium, and for me, Buffy was where it began. The cold opening begins with Xander practicing, on Willow, how he's going to ask Buffy to be his date to the upcoming school dance. Xander has been trying to muster up the courage to ask Buffy out all season long, and now he's finally going to do it. This introduces one of the themes of the episode, facing up to your fear of doing something and finding the courage to do it. Willow, adorably but also pathetically, is enjoying it, imagining he's asking her. She still hasn't found the courage to face up to her situation with Xander. We then cut to Buffy, who is slaying a vampire on school grounds, something we hadn't seen before. Cordelia is parked there with her boyfriend of the week, and she's in the driver's seat, meaning she finally got her driver's license. She notices that something is happening outside, showing her heightened awareness following the events of the previous episode. In that episode, we also witnessed Angel supplying Giles with the Codex of Prophecies about the Slayer, and now we see Giles sitting in the library, trying to decipher it. He gets to a point that horrifies him, and just then, a serious California earthquake occurs, sending the humans to seek shelter and driving the Master into ecstasy. What is going on? The next morning, Giles is visibly tired after a sleepless night and deeply troubled by something, while Buffy remarks that vampire activity is on the rise. Xander then finally asks Buffy to be his girlfriend, and he is actually handling it quite well, finding out that he is capable of doing it. It is a moment of growth for Xander, but when Buffy tells him that she doesn't think of him that way, we see that he still has a lot of growing up to do.
Forget it. I'm not him. I guess a guy's gotta be undead to make time with you.
That's really harsh.
Xander can't face up to reality. He would rather believe that Buffy prefers dating vampires than admit the problem is with his own desirability. It will take him a long time to overcome this delusion, and will remain the source of his innate hostility towards Buffy. He then asks Willow to go with him instead, but Willow shows some growth of her own, and finally stands up to him.
Yeah, I know what we'll do. We can go. Be my date. We'll have a great time. We'll dance. We'll go wild. What do you say?
No.
Good. What?
There's no way.
Willow, come on.
You think I want to go to the dance with you and watch you wish you were at the dance with her? You think that's my idea of hijinks? You should know better.
Buffy, meanwhile, has bigger fish to fry. Jenny Calendar shows up again, telling Giles that the internet is full of stories marking the end of days. Buffy had similar occurrences. This obviously concurs with what Giles read in the prophecy, but he still doesn't spell it out. He wants to talk to Angel first, to figure out what could be done. Unfortunately, Buffy overhears the conversation.
I've checked it against all my other volumes. It's very real.
Well, there's got to be some way around it.
Listen, some prophecies are a bit dodgy. They're mutable. Buffy herself has thwarted them time and time again. But this is the Codex. There is nothing in it that does not come to pass.
Then you're reading it wrong.
I wish to God I were. But it's very plain. Tomorrow night, Buffy will face the Master, and she will die.
In our episode 5 discussion, we noted that Giles, with his modern consciousness, is different from the Master, with his medieval consciousness, in that he believes prophecies can be thwarted. Not this time, though. Here, we are dealing with fate that cannot be altered. All of a sudden, the goofy monster show that we've come to know and enjoy is throwing something real our way. As I said, we were not sure how it was going to end, and the fear of Buffy's death was palpable. All at once, it became a different show, more serious, and the acting immediately leveled up to it.
Buffy, if the Master rises...
I don't care! I don't care. Giles, I'm 16 years old. I don't want to die.
Buffy goes back to the attitude she started the show with, of wanting to quit the Slayer life. She wants to avoid the prophecy by keeping away from the Master, and tries to convince her mother to leave town for a while. But it isn't that simple. The prophecy also states that the Master will open the Hellmouth and unleash Armageddon. It's the end of the world, like it was in episode 2, but the metaphorical significance is different this time. Teenagers don't realize yet how much one changes during their lifetime, how things that are important now can lose their significance later and be replaced by other things. So when they lose something that is important to them, they think that it is the end of the world. Buffy's anxiety in the pilot was that she would lose her social status, and this was what the apocalypse symbolized. But there are also anxieties that are more justified. The teenage years are usually when one first realizes their own mortality, that your personal world is going to die one day, and this is the fear that Buffy is dealing with here. Joyce, of course, thinks that her daughter is a regular teenager, so she misinterpreted it back then, and does again here.
Isn't the prom tomorrow night? Or spring fling, whatever they're calling it?
I guess.
Nobody asked you?
Someone, but
Not the right someone. See, sometimes I actually do know what you're thinking.
But Joyce also, again unwittingly, starts the process of getting Buffy back on track.
Well then, this probably isn't the best time for this, but,
Buffy is really taken by the dress, more than by just any pretty dress. She doesn't seem to know why, but we do. It is very similar to the iconic dress she wore in the movie, as she was laying waste to LA's vampire community. That film is not really part of the lore of the show, which gives Buffy a different LA history, so she would not make the connection. But we know that the dress is somehow reminding her who she is. Joyce tries to convince her to go to the dance anyway, saying that you never know what could happen. These words have an effect on Buffy, but it isn't the dance she is thinking of. Meanwhile, Cordelia continues to show growth. She hangs out with Willow and tells her that she was not annoyed by her boyfriend standing her up, which in the past would have made her furious. But when she finds out that he's just watching cartoons, she does get mad, showing us that while she's gonna be more good-natured from now on, she will never be a pushover. It turns out, however, that the reason he's sitting with his friends in front of the TV is that they were all killed by vampires, a revelation that sends Willow spiraling.
It doesn't matter as long as you're okay. I'm not okay. I knew those guys. I go to that room every day. And when I walked in there, it wasn't our world anymore. They made it theirs. And they had fun.
This is something our heroes never encountered before. The vampires didn't kill just to feed, but had fun with the killing, something that for humans is shocking and horrifying. This is obviously what the Master ordered them to do, because he wanted to ensure that Buffy will be provoked into facing him. And it works. Buffy realizes that running away means that the entire world will become the way Willow describes, and she is the only one who can stop it. She already completed the iconic look, adding the leather jacket she got from Angel on top of the fancy white dress. This is the way Buffy was first imagined, a badass girly girl. Willow likes it.
Buffy, I like your dress.
Starting a running gag, in which everyone she meets during the episode compliments her look. They all somehow feel that there's something iconic about it. Buffy says farewell to Willow, believing that she'll never see her again, and goes out to meet her fate. And she does so just as Giles, who took her earlier outbursts to heart, decides that he will try to thwart the prophecy, by being the one who will face the Master instead.
Buffy, I'm not going to send you out there to die. You were right. I've waited about in these old books for so long, I've forgotten what the real world is like. It's time I found out.
You're still not going up against the Master.
I've made up my mind.
So have I.
I made up mine first. I'm older and wiser than you, and just do what you're told for once. All right?
It's not how it goes. I'm the Slayer.
I don't care what the books say. I defy prophecy, and I'm going. There's nothing you can say will change my mind.
I know.
This is actually an important philosophical moment. We've discussed how the Master's medieval world is a hierarchy, where everyone has a fixed place in the order. The modern world, which Giles represents, believed that all of humanity is marching together towards a utopian future, where everyone will be free and equal, so it rejected the idea of a fixed hierarchy. However, modern thought also believed that the way to achieve this utopia is to follow an elite of wise people who will take us there. Thus, it was a hierarchy of a different kind. Giles here claims Buffy should listen to him, because he is wiser. But Buffy belongs to the pop age, in which we have become increasingly suspicious of elites, and instead we believe in the wisdom of the masses. Everyone does their thing, and somehow it all comes together to create the best result. With Giles knocked out, something that is already becoming a tradition on the show, it is this messy pop approach that is taking over. Let's see if it somehow manages to save the world, as well as save Buffy from her fate.
You fight the Master and you'll die.
Maybe. Maybe I'll take him with me.
So this is what Buffy is thinking. She can't save herself, but maybe her sacrifice will save the world. This is, of course, a very Christian motif, the idea that self-sacrifice brings salvation, to yourself as well as to others. Earlier, when Buffy threw the cross on the ground, the necklace she got from Angel, it symbolized her abandoning this calling. Now that she accepted it again, we see her picking the necklace up and wearing it. Buffy is going to do her thing. The question is, can the others do something to help her? Jenny is the first to be useful. Her sources inform her that the Anointed One is still alive, and that he is in the form of a little boy. And this enables Buffy to already alter the prophecy, which said that she will not know the Anointed One as he will lead her into hell. Remember, this is not a prophecy from the Codex that cannot be thwarted. This is the Aurelius prophecy, and Buffy gains an advantage by recognizing the kid and letting him lead her. She self-consciously goes into hell, and this gives her a psychological edge that will prove crucial. We then see Xander and Willow in the library, brought up to speed by Giles and Jenny. Xander just bravely faced his own fear and asked Buffy out. He got rebuffed and plunged into depression, but guess what? He discovered it's not the end of the world, and he still has what to live for. Right now, it is to help Buffy, even though she broke his heart. A lot of fans dislike Xander, and earlier, when we watched his bad reaction to her rejection, we saw why. But this is the thing about Xander. He has good sides and bad sides. He can be brave and noble, but he can also be petty and narrow-minded, and you never know which side of him will prevail. As infuriating as he can be at times, this unpredictability makes him an excellent character, because we never know what he will do. In this episode, in particular, we see both sides of him. Giles and Jenny, the adults in the room, try to steer the conversation towards the bigger picture and focus on how to stop the apocalypse. Xander doesn't care. He can think only of helping Buffy. But then, he also shows growth. Mustering the courage to ask Buffy out, even though it failed, gave him more confidence. In the pilot, we saw him just going after her into the tunnels, without thinking. This time, he has a plan.
Look, I know you can find this master guy. He's underground, right? Take me to him.
You're way out of your league, kid. The master will kill you before you can even breathe, if you're lucky.
How can I say this clearly? I don't like you. At the end of the day, I pretty much think you're a vampire. But Buffy's got this big old yin for you. She thinks you're a real person. And right now I need you to prove her right.
And we also get some of Xander's bad side. This is something that I've never seen anyone point out. Xander is a bigot. He judges Angel by what he is, not who he is. He has a prejudice against vampires, and they are all the same to him. But prejudice alone isn't bigotry. We are all prejudiced in some ways. A bigot is someone who is unable to overcome their prejudice, even when shown that they are wrong. Vampires are soulless and evil, so it is rational to hate them, but a rational person should also be able to recognize evidence to the contrary. In the previous episode, we saw Giles overcoming his prejudice, realizing Angel is an exceptional case. Xander is unable to do so, and will remain an irrational bigot for years. So, we gave up on the authority of wise people like Giles, and we are putting our fate in the hands of immature, irrational and unpredictable characters like Xander. Are we doomed? Let's see. As Angel leads Xander to the Master's lair, Buffy is facing her fate, and she is visibly terrified. Before, we said that this apocalypse is a metaphor for her fear of death, but it also represents another thing, a fear of men. This is a fear that all girls and women harbor, knowing that they are the weaker sex and that they have something in them that might drive men to attack them. Buffy was given powers that allow her not to worry about that, but here, she meets a male who is stronger than her, and reverts back to a frightened little girl, the girl we saw in her nightmare a couple of episodes ago. Still, she overcomes it and bravely faces the Master, but alas, he overpowers her with his hypnotic abilities. And just before he bites her, he delivers the psychological master stroke.
You tried. It was noble of you. You heard the prophecy that I was about to break free, and you came to stop me. But prophecies are tricky creatures. They don't tell you everything. You're the one that sets me free. If you hadn't come, I couldn't go. Think about that.
He acknowledges that she was brave and noble, sacrificing herself to save the world, but informs her that it was her very bravery that is going to bring the world to its doom. It was her powerful blood that will give him the power to break the seal and open the Hellmouth. He believes that this information will devastate her, and it does, but there's one thing he didn't bring into account. Just like their encounter gave him the power that he needed, it could do the same thing for her. Buffy wasn't led unknowingly by the child to this encounter. She chose to be there. When you face your fear and it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. He could have prevented that by drinking enough of her blood to kill her, but he became too cocky, trusting in the unshakable truth of the prophecy. He drinks enough to render her unconscious, and then drops her in the pool and leaves her to drown.
Oh God, the power! By the way, I like your dress.
And then, like a Bond villain, he leaves her behind and carries on with his plan, assuming that he took care of the problem. His medieval logic sees no other option. The prophecy is fulfilled. When Xander and Angel find her, Buffy is clinically dead by drowning. But this also means that it can be reversed, that they can revive her with CPR. The Master never thought anyone would come after Buffy. It made no sense. Rationally, they should have all listened to Giles and remained in the library to figure out how to stop the apocalypse. Xander, due to his immaturity, his bigotry, and his obsession with Buffy, acted in an irrational manner, and ended up being the one who saves Buffy, and consequently saves the world. Those who did remain in the library, Giles, Jenny, and Willow, do try to deal with the apocalypse. They figure out that all the vampires in town will serve as the Master's army, and, based on the experience in the Harvest episode, assume that they will gather at the Bronze and attack the Spring Fling party. While Giles stays in the library to do more research, Jenny and Willow intend to hurry to the Bronze to warn the kids. But then they find out...
You get to the Bronze before we do? Don't need to worry about that.
Why not?
Because they're not going to the Bronze.
Luckily...
Why are they coming here?
Not caring. Get in!
While our heroes were busy fighting the forces of evil, Cordelia learned how to drive, to enhance her social status. And it is her vanity that saves our girls, as she is there to drive them back to the library. We then find out that the library is where the vampire army decided to gather, because... Of course the Hellmouth is located right under the library, because the library represents the Age of Enlightenment, which defeated the medieval worldview and keeps it down. But medieval thinking, we are told in a metaphorical way, was not defeated but repressed, and it remained hidden underground, waiting for the moment it could take over again. The vampires believe that the library is the root of the modern world, and if they destroy it, the medieval order will return. Now that the library lost power, as we've seen throughout the season, they believe it is the right time. But, being vampires, they don't realize that the times have changed. Kids no longer read books, not because the Western spirit has dwindled, but because there was a paradigm shift. This is no longer the modern age, but the pop age. The pop age may not be that interested in literature, but it has other media. We are watching the modern age collapsing before the medieval attack, as the library gets destroyed. But the new hero of the pop age is there to save the day. Let's recall where we are in relation to the pop age. I've been saying all along that we are in the midst of a transition from the rock and roll period to the cyber period, and that the transition began in 1995. We are in 1997, so the cyber period doesn't have a lot of content yet, and is still trying to work its way out from under the shadow of the rock and roll period. In the first half of the season, we were dealing with stuff that related to the rock and roll period, and we were always listening to rock and roll at the Bronze. In the second half, we were always away from the Bronze, dealing with issues that go deeper than the period. But we were also going deeper into the world of the vampires, weaving in fantasy elements, laying the ground for the paradigm of the new period. In her white dress, Buffy looks virginal, symbolizing this new unexplored paradigm. But she isn't sure of herself yet, so she shields herself with a black leather jacket, a symbol of rock and roll. The Master, however, easily strips her of her jacket before he kills her. The old paradigm lost its power. Xander, meanwhile, veered away from rock and roll. Rejected by Buffy, he doesn't connect to its ecstatic and swaggering spirit anymore, but chooses to shut himself in his room and listen to country music, which he defines as the music of pain. But he finds the spirit again when he hears Buffy's in danger, and gets there in time to bring her back to life as a hero of the new period.
Master?
He's gone up.
No, you're still weak.
No, I feel strong. I feel different. Let's go.
Just like drinking Buffy's blood made the Master stronger, it appears that his venom made her stronger. But this is the metaphor. What it symbolizes is that Buffy is stronger now because she faced her fear and survived. The part of her that was afraid of dying, the part that made her freeze in the presence of the Master and gave him hypnotic power over her, was surpassed because she willingly chose to go down to hell, and now she's no longer paralyzed by it. She doesn't need the jacket anymore. By surpassing her old self, she internalized the heroic spirit of the rock and roll period, fused it with the elements of the new period, and now she is ready to become a hero for this new period. Which leads to an epic rock and roll moment.
So how do you know where the Master's going?
I know.
Buffy is bringing rock and roll back into the show, in the form of her own theme song. The Nerf Herder composition begins with a werewolf yell, answered by a guitar shriek that leads to a rocking number. It is a merger between horror and rock and roll, which is what the show is. But we are also witnessing a shift in the balance of power. In the rock and roll period, horror was subordinate to music, and fantasy was denigrated as a genre consumed by nerdy losers. To be accepted, the show had to play by these rules, to wear a leather jacket on top of its horror fantasy core. Now, Buffy gives up on the jacket. In the cyber period, music will be subordinate to fantasy, and fantasy figures are bigger heroes than any musician. To me, this is the moment when it began. Buffy finds the Master on the roof of the library, still wearing his leather jacket. But he's history. This is a new Buffy, and he has no power over her.
Where are your jives now? Will you laugh when my hell is on Earth?
You're that amped about hell? Go there.
So goes the Master, but he doesn't quite go poof like other vampires. He leaves a skeleton behind, showing that he belongs to an older vampire breed. In our section summary, we shall discuss the Master's importance to the show, and to pop culture. Here, I just want to give a shout out to the actor who played him. Mark Metcalf became famous for playing Niedermeyer in the 1978 hit comedy Animal House, the film that started the wave of college flicks. The heart of the film is a war between two frat houses, one rebellious, wild and fun, thus representing the true spirit of youth in the rock and roll period, and the other stuffy, snobbish and disciplined, representing the opposite. Niedermeyer belongs to the latter, and he is one of the biggest douchebags in the history of cinema, but Metcalf plays him in such a campy and entertaining way that he became iconic. After that, he got more roles in which he was asked to play in pretty much the same way. He brings his signature over-the-top style to this role as well, and it was fun to see it once again associated with a character who is an enemy of the youth. But this is only half of it, because the character of the Master is also inspired by one of the scariest characters in the history of cinema, Count Orlok of the legendary 1922 film Nosferatu. In this German expressionist classic of the silent era, the story of Dracula is reimagined, and the villainous vampire becomes a metaphor of the plague, or of death in general. He therefore looks less human than Dracula, and is a truly horrifying image. Metcalf looks like Orlok, and is quite scary, but Niedermeyer is there as well, and he is campy, funny and delightful. He is the perfect main villain for the first season of Buffy. So, we survived death, self-surpassed, saved the world, and brought a new attitude to the pop age. Now, at last, we can finally go back to party at the Bronze.
Sure. We save the world. I say we party. I mean, I got all pretty.
What about him?
He's not going anywhere. Loser.
I'm not dancing, man.
Well, sir, you can come with us.
Oh, that was me. I'm really, really hungry.
By the way, I really like your dress.
Yeah. It's a big hit with everyone.
In the last shot, the camera pans to the master skeleton in a kind of ominous way. But we got used to it with season 1 endings, and we saw that the endings didn't really lead anywhere. The only one that had significance was the episode 5 ending that introduced the Anointed One, but even that, in this episode, turned out to be quite underwhelming. So we are not too worried about the residue left behind by the Master. Season 1 is still old television, in which what happened in an episode stayed in that episode. However, now we are entering Season 2, and the new television. From here on, there will be consequences.